I ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to the March 27th County Commission meeting. I would remind you to silence your cell phones. The meeting documents are on the end of the counter next to Commissioner Bender. And if you need a listening device, you can talk to Carol in the front here. With that, we'll move on to routine business. Item number 1 is consider a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Bender.
I'd like to make one amendment to the agenda. I'd like to move item 16 immediately before current item 10, so it's the first item under regular business.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 2 is approve the commission meeting minutes from March 20th, 2018.
Pay the bills.
Nope, we're going to do minutes
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Approve the minutes.
I have a motion to do the
I
minutes.
was so excited.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 3 is bills to be paid in the amount of $596,355.25.
I'd renew my plea to pay the bills.
Second that motion.
Are there any comments on the bills? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4 is reports. There are none. Item number 5 is personnel actions. Item A is consider a motion to approve the routine personnel actions.
So moved.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any questions on those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item B is consider a motion to approve the 2018 Minnehaha County Affirmative Action Plans. Jen Atkins.
Good morning. Good morning. Jen Oddix from Human Resources. This morning, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of our data analysis from our annual affirmative action plan. Given the plan's length, you've been sent a link to the entire document to review a couple of weeks ago, and additionally, our diversity committee met last week. We've also sent the plan out to the department heads to review. As you know, because of a federal contract that we have to prepare an affirmative action plan each year. And this plan is a document in which we analyze data of our employee demographics and compare that against the workforce availability in our reasonable recruitment area, which is the Sioux Falls Metropolitan Statistical Area. And we do this for 4 protected groups: females, minorities, individuals with disabilities, and protected veterans. And what we hope to find is that as a federal contractor, we employ people at approximately the same rate that is available to us in our external workforce. That being said, of course, there are no quotas. We are not penalized if we don't meet those external levels, but we do make goals to try to improve or positively impact our underutilization if we do find areas where we are not at what workforce availability is. So we're going to look at a couple of charts. The first chart is a comparison of the minorities employed here at the county as compared to what's available to us in the external workforce. All of our data is grouped by job group so that we're hopefully comparing like data. And our first job group is administrative support. There's 4 columns in each job group. The first is what our external workforce availability is. The second column is what our goal is. And the OFCCP, which is the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, that's the division of the Department of Labor that runs the affirmative action plans, they've said it's not statistically relevant, or likely rather, that you're going to have a 1-to-1 ratio. So they've said 80% of workforce is what we'd like you to compare yourselves to. So that's that red column. The blue column is where the county is currently at, and the last column is where we were last year, just to use as a comparison. So in that first group, you can see we meet our goal. In the second job group, we are underutilized. It's a small job group. There's only 28 people. If we were to hire only 1 minority in that job group, that would offset our underutilization. In the next 3 job groups, we do exceed our goals. And then in the last 2, we are underutilized in both of those as well. Again, small job groups, 1 minority in each of those would offset our underutilization. The next chart compares the females employed here at the county as compared to the external workforce. It's laid out exactly the same. Our goal being that red column. Where we are currently at is that next column next to it, the orange column. So in the first 4 job groups rather, we do meet our goal. In the last 3, we are underutilized. However, those last 2, service maintenance and skilled craft, small job groups, only 1 female in each of those job groups would offset our underutilization. In the last job group, technicians, we are more significantly underutilized. And anytime we don't meet our goals, we do set goals to try to positively impact our underutilization. And for us, when we say affirmative action, what we mean is efforts that we can make to better advertise our positions or changes we might make in our recruitment processes to hopefully advocate for people in those protected groups to get some of those applications from qualified people in those groups. The next column is a look at our protected veterans here at the county. For this one, we are required only to analyze the workforce as a whole versus break it down by job group. So that's why there's just that one red column. And the national benchmark for protected veterans at a federal contractor is 6.7%. As you can see, we exceed that. That green column is where we're at currently at 8.25%. Down slightly from last year, but again, not a big concern because we certainly do exceed our goal. All told at the county, there are 43 protected veterans out of our 521 full-time employees. When we take all of the full-time veterans at the county, not just those who are in a protected veteran category, we have 74 veterans who work full-time for the county. So that's over 14% of our staff are veterans here at the county, which is a great representation. The next column is individuals with disabilities who are employed here at the county. There's a national benchmark for this as well, which is 7%. That's applied for each job group. And we do meet the goal in most of our job groups. The two that we're short on is professionals and paraprofessionals, as well as service maintenance. However, in both situations, were we to hire only one individual with a disability, it would offset our underutilization. It's important to remember for all of these job groups that are all these protected categories, it's always about hiring the most qualified person for the job. Again, these are not quotas, so we're not penalized if we don't meet our goals. This chart breaks down the specific racial or ethnic category of the minorities who are employed at the county and compares that against the civilian labor force. As you can see, it's not a direct comparison. The categories that we have to survey for our EEO reporting are not exactly the same as the civilian labor force reports that we get from the South Dakota Department of Labor, but it kind of gives you an idea of where our minority groups are within the county. All told, county employs 7.8% of its staff as are minorities, which is compared to the 6.5% that are available to us in our external workforce. So again, we are at a greater level than what's available to us, which is a good thing. And then our final chart takes a look at the females employed at the county versus what's available to us externally. 48.4% of external workforce is female. We currently employ 41.07% as female. So slightly less than what's available to us. However, we have been trending up the last few years, and there's not a great disparity between those two, so we're not overly concerned about that. That's just, again, a real high-level overview of our affirmative action plan. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, my next request would be just formal approval of the plan.
Okay. Are there any questions for Jen? Commissioner Bender?
Jen, I just was wondering, I know that, for example, I believe it was in the technician group, the underutilization of females. I was wondering if you could give some examples of what types of things that we as a county might do to try to attract more females into that particular role?
Sure, that is a job group that a lot of our IT positions are in, mostly IT positions. And we are underutilized in that job groups. It's small, there's only 14 people in there. So next time we have a job posting, whenever we open a job posting, we get a notification internally. We have a system that we have that notifies us if we're underutilized in that specific job group. So we know before we even open a job posting that we need to take a look to see what our other options are to try to positively affect that underutilization. So reaching out to specific groups that might advocate for women in technology, we could advertise with that sort of group. In 2017, we didn't actually have any job postings in our technicians job group, so we didn't even have an opportunity to try to affect that. But those would be some things that we would do, is really starting with that advertising. And then we also take a look at our recruitment processes. Is there anything in our job posting that might inadvertently dissuade women from applying? When we do our interviews, we may have a wider interview pool to try to incorporate some of the greater diversity into our interviews, so we're at least getting into that first stage of the process.
Bender?
Well, just as a follow-up, I appreciate that. Those were great examples. And I know doing these AAP reports is very time-consuming and can be just another thing that we have to mark off on our checklist of things to do. But I do think it's really helpful for all businesses, and particularly for Minnehaha County, to keep this in front of us so that we are measuring how we're doing, because if you aren't measuring it, then you don't have any opportunity to impact it. So I really appreciate your hard work on this. So.
Thank you. And to your point, we do prepare the report once per year, and it is filed with the auditor's office here. But it's not just shelved then for the whole year. It's something that we're looking at and considering all year long as we prepare for our analysis at the end of the year.
Thank you. We'll need a motion to approve the affirmative action plan.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is abatements. Item A is assessment freeze RDID number 33628, 2017 property taxes in the amount of $942.62. Auditor, you're the one who gets to speak on them.
Oh, well,
He's a substitute today, so
I'm
catch him
substitute,
off
so
guard.
you're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. This abatement, number 2018-0046, concerns somebody who is looking for the elderly freeze. They were not aware of the elderly freeze for now, so they're asking for an abatement on their 2017 property taxes payable in 2018. And it has been recommended as approved by City Council, City Attorney, State's Attorney, Equalization, and the Treasurer.
Any questions? Is there a motion on that
Also
one?
by our County Treasurer, Pam Nelson. I will make a motion to approve it.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number B is Crusher Investment Companies, RDID number 54496, 2017 property taxes in the amount of $232.24.
With this particular case, the Crusher Investments Company, an error had been made in identifying entry or description of the real property in entering the valuation of the real property or in of the tax to the injury of the complainant. So they're asking for a abatement on the amount of $232.24. And it has been approved by City Council, City Attorney, State's Attorney twice, and Equalization.
And by Mayor Mike Huther.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number C is RDID number 23031, 2017 property taxes in the amount of $967.12 as a result of a fire. Item number C.
And that's all that I have on there, so. It's also been recommended approval by the State's Attorney as well as Equalization.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Auditor Litz. Item number 7 is notices and requests. There are none. Item number 8 is planning and zoning notices. There are none. Item number 9 is petition for compromise of lien. Item A is DP&O number 62220 in the amount of $3,465.90, and DP&O number 40556 in the amount of $1,409.20. Good morning.
Good morning, Melinda Storley, Commission Assistant. The petitioner has applied to compromise 2 liens. The first lien, DP&O 62220, is in her name only, and it represents public advocate and court-appointed attorney fees in the amount of $3,465.90, and DP&O 40566, a joint lien with her ex-spouse in the amount of $1,409.27, which represents poor relief and public defender fees. She was married to the joint lienee August 9, 2003, and divorced on May 2006. This is relevant in her request below. The applicant is requesting that on DP&O 62220, she's paid $1,025 from 2007 to 2017, and would like a compromise and release of the lien in full with payment of $1,732, 50% of the current balance. On DP&O 40556, she would like to be removed from the joint lien with a total payment of $276.40, $175 or half of the shared poor relief in 2005. That's why I listed the dates that she was divorced and married above. That's in 2005, that was the period they were married. And then $101.40 for public defender fees for her legal representation, leaving the remainder in the amount of her ex-spouse in the amount of $1,132.87. The petitioner is separated from her current husband and is in the process of purchasing a home for her and her 3 children in the amount of $170,000 and is expected to close on April 17, 2018. She's currently employed and claims an income of $28,986. Her assets listed equal $27,205.73, and liabilities equal $331 a month. Her taxable income in 2017 was $25,076, and she received $4,817 in refund.
Are there questions for Melinda? Is the applicant here? I don't see anybody, so Commission, back to you. Questions or comments and decisions? Commissioner Bird.
Madam Chair, I'm going to support this proposed settlement. I would note that the petitioner has made 28 payments towards paying down her debt to us, and I deeply appreciate the effort there, because all too often it's our lien is totally forgotten until they find out that they inherited $1 million. And so I would make a motion, pending other discussion, I'd make a motion to accept the proposals on these 2 liens.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'd make a second.
Okay. Additional comments? Commissioner Karski?
A couple things. The narrative states 3 children, and I don't know if this how this happens, but on the tax form it only shows 1 dependent. Any idea what's going on there? Okay,
I saw
good.
that too, and I wondered if it's just depending on who claims the child on their tax forms, because I noticed
Thought
that
it might
too.
be something like that. And also, I think this is the one, the narrative this lady talks about how she has been really giving back to the community, speaking to juveniles about addiction, helping people coming out of halfway houses. So when we talk about, abating this, I look at it as, not only the monetary payments made, but she's also been giving back to society with her time and her experiences. Your motion was to abate it at what dollar amount?
At her proposed settlement.
Of what?
Well, one is for, what is it?
DPNO number 45.
One is for
405556.
$276, and the other is for $1,132. So between them, I'm sorry, I've got it wrong. There's 2 proposals, and I'll have to research it here again.
Because her letter states $1,200, about $1,200, but we're talking about $1,700, and that's
Well,
where.
Melinda can explain it. I think that'd be best.
After further discussion, she agreed that, first of all, she wasn't, on DPNO 40556, she wasn't sure that $101.40 was her public defender representation, but she said that if we found that it was hers, that she would be willing to pay for that. And that's why the amounts have changed. Also, I believe she increased her amount so it would, on DPNO 62220 to 50%, she wanted to specifically pay 50% of that amount.
Wanted to or volunteered to.
Well, she,
Agreed to.
she agreed to contribute that much towards that lien, and then she felt responsible for her portion on the other lien for the poor relief, half of the poor relief, and the public defender fees.
If I may continue?
Yes?
I'm probably, again, feeling maybe a little more generous this morning just because of what, again, this lady has been doing in the 10 years since a lot of this has happened. Not only the contribution, again, the money, but the other contributions to the community and her I mean, a judge would have probably said this is, you know, public service and, you know, another way to offset the debt to society, I guess. If she's willing to pay $1,200, I would even consider a $1,200 payment, but again, I'm feeling a little more generous just because of, after reading this lady's letter, I'm feeling pretty compassionate towards her.
Commissioner Bender.
So just to clarify that the motion that's on, that was made and seconded is to abate DPNO 62220 with a payment of 50% of the current balance of $1,732.
Yes.
And Commissioner Karski, if I understood you correctly, you were suggesting that you were not in support of that?
What was the dollar amount again? 1,000?
$1,732, which is 50% of the current balance on that particular.
She's
matter.
buying a home, going to become a property taxpayer. She's looking at a home for her and her three kids. I'm okay with that, but again, I'm just feeling 1,200 would have been a good number too. So just putting that out there for discussion, but I would support 1,700 also, unless you want to make a substitute motion, Commissioner.
I'm not ready to at this time.
Okay.
I think 50% is typically what we have agreed to, and you know, I appreciate. I don't disagree with the statements you've made, but I think that in good faith that she has made this offer. I think it's consistent with what we've done in the past, and I think I'm in support of where we are.
So the motion is for DPNO number 6222 in the amount of, which would be half, $1,732.50, and then we will deal with the next one. So
Okay.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. The next one is DPNO number 40552. She's asked to compromise for 50% and then also to pay the 10140.
So I think it's DPNO 40556, and she's offered to pay $175, which is half of the shared poor relief for 2005 while she was married to her former spouse, and $101.40 for public defender fees that she incurred. And I would make a motion to accept that offer.
And I'll second that, leaving the remainder in the name of her ex-spouse.
Thank you.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Are there any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. And then we'll move on to the next DPNO, which is DPNO number 88194 in the amount of $1,200.
This DPNO represents poor relief for rent assistance in 2015 and 2017. No payments have been made on the lien. The applicant is requesting a compromise and release of the lien in full with payment of $300 or 25% of the lien balance. She's a single parent in the process of purchasing a home for $122,000, $1,022,278 through a Grants for Grads homeownership program from the South Dakota Housing Development Authority and is expecting to close on April 9, 2018. She is currently employed and claims an income of $43,742.40. Her assets listed equal $4,045 and her liabilities equal $1,521 per month. Her taxable income in 2016 was $27,329, and she received a $6,656 refund.
Is the applicant here? See anyone? So commission comments?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Baird?
you know, I appreciate the fact that this person is making us an offer, and I would just point out that there is no cost for public defender, public advocate. This is for help during a couple of months when they needed it, and it's not that large an amount of money, and they're making us an offer. I'd recommend taking it. I'll wait for thoughts from my brothers and sister.
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept their offer.
The offer is 300?
$300, yes.
Not.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Bender?
I'm going to support this. I just wanted to, you know, typically we do request 50%. Here we're talking about small dollar amount, and this is a person who's going to become a property owner and start paying taxes, once again. It's another very inspiring story, and I learned something. I didn't know there was a Grants for Grad program to get people into housing, and I think that's fabulous, so.
I do too. So I have a motion and a second to support this to compromise the lien in the amount of $300. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I'd like to just make a little comment here.
Thank you, Melinda.
Which is, again, that I think we're owed somewhere in the in the area of $49 million on these liens. The auditor Bob here has just given me the thumbs up, meaning it's more than $49 million. And we don't collect very much money of that back every year. Some people regularly make payments, and I really appreciate it. And then some of us put it out of their mind until they need another favor. And I just really appreciate the people that make payments, and one in the hand is two in the bush, and so $300 is a good deal.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak about anything that is not on today's agenda? And I don't see anybody moving, so then we will move on to regular business. And since we amended the regular business, we will be having number 16, the presentation of the Georgetown Capstone Project by Aaron Sertzka.
Good morning, Commission. Erin Serska, Minnehaha County Commission Office. And this morning, we're going to have a few of our stakeholders speak who was able to go to the Georgetown Certificate Program and present a PowerPoint regarding the capstone project that came from it. A part of my work with the Commission Office is doing projects related to juvenile justice. And one of those projects is we contract with Lutheran Social Services to staff a part-time FTE for racial and ethnic fairness coordination in our community. One of the projects that staff did last year was head up an application to the Council of Juvenile Services to pay for the tuition to attend a Georgetown certificate program with the purpose of training, giving us best practices in the area of reducing our racial disparity within our juvenile justice system. With that, the kind of order we're going to do is there's 5 people that went. Andrew Robertson, he's a Senior Deputy Public Defender. We have Carol James, Senior Deputy State's Attorney. Judge Cutler, who's the current juvenile judge. Annie Brokenleg went, and she was the Racial and Ethnic Fairness Coordinator. And then Sergeant Jason Leach, and he's the sergeant of our school resource officers. So before we head into the PowerPoint, a few of our court personnel have a trial that they need to get to. So I'm going to give Carol James, Andrew Robertson, and Judge Cutler the opportunity to speak about their experience before we do the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Commission, particularly for moving us up on the agenda item. As Erin said, we do have a trial starting at 10 o'clock that we need to get to, so we really appreciate this. We all wanted to say a few words, I guess, on our experience. In November, we were allowed to go to this training in Georgetown for a week, and it was a really amazing experience. We learned from people all over the country about reducing racial and ethnic disparities and what other jurisdictions are doing to do that. And through that week, we learned that we're actually way ahead of the game on lots of things in the way that we handle juveniles and juvenile justice. And there was only, I think, one other prosecutor there. I don't think there was any other defense attorneys there. There was maybe one other or two other law enforcement officers, and there were a handful of other judges. But mostly it was people that are working in detention centers, probation, working with youth directly to address these issues. During that week, we learned about things that have worked in other communities, particularly in the state of Iowa. There were a couple different jurisdictions there from Iowa that have been doing this and have seen positive results where it has actually reduced the number of youth of color in the system. And part of our plan is to present the idea of having a diversion coordinator to coordinate diversions, whether they're coming from the state's attorney's office or coming from law enforcement directly. And we have seen, and you will hear in the PowerPoint, that this has worked in other jurisdictions to reduce those numbers. During that week, I think some of us had some eye-opening experiences and made us reflect personally on how we do our jobs and what our goals are. And obviously, we don't want to see kids in court. We don't want to see kids going into the adult system. And I think that this proposal that we have for you today will go a long way in reducing those numbers that we're feeding into the adult system. And that's ultimately our goal, is to make sure that we get kids on the right track and they don't have a criminal record.
Thank you, Carol. Carol James is from the State's Attorney's Office, and she's a juvenile prosecutor.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today, folks. My name is Andrew Robertson. I'm an attorney at the Public Defender's Office. I was also able to head out to Georgetown and spend a week out there learning some new materials. And I just wanted to mention that I'm a huge proponent of this particular program that we're going to offer here today. You know, a lot of times I think at the Public Defender's Office, by the time we get in contact with a lot of these kids, there's a lot of work to do, and I'm hoping that the program that we're going to be implementing and talking to you about today will kind of give us an opportunity to start talking to those kids a little bit sooner, and hopefully giving them some services and providing them with some additional information that will hopefully help them avoid, you know, future contact in the system, future contact with law enforcement. I think that this program will also encourage relationships with law enforcement and other officials. So again, I thank you for your time here today, and I'm excited about this program that we're working on.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Thank you for hearing us this morning and taking time out of your schedule to do so. I was also a team member of that group, and I think most of us felt a real call to action, and this plan is part of that call to action. While we know what the research says, without taking action, all of the good efforts and good intentions often fall by the wayside. So we know from the research as well that a coordinator is a very important part of executing a plan that's designed to give us the feedback that we need to know that we're actually doing something about racial and ethnic disparities. So thank you again for your time, your interest, and your continued support.
Thank you, Judge Cutler. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Rebecca Kiso-Knutz, and I'm the VP of Community Services for Lutheran Social Services. I was not a participant in the Capstone project, but Annie Brokenleg, who was an LSS staff member who served as the Racial and Ethnic Fairness Coordinator who attended on behalf of our agency, resigned her position and left us in December. And so I was nominated and have had the privilege of serving as the secretary for the working group, putting together the 11-page proposal that was submitted to Georgetown as a part of our Capstone project. And so I was nominated to speak today to cover the high-level overview of what the strategies are in the work plan. So as was mentioned by the prior speakers, the purpose of the Georgetown program is to provide consultation and training to local jurisdiction to help their efforts on reducing racial and ethnic disparities within the juvenile justice system. We're not alone in having these disparities, and so this was an opportunity for us to learn from best practices in the field about what we can do to help work on this locally. So it was a week-long training, quite intense, as I understand it. The project was actually funded by the State Department of Corrections Council on Juvenile Services, provided the grant funding to support the participation in the cohort. And then, of course, at the end of that week-long training, the group is challenged to put together a project to take back the learning that they have had and apply that locally. And so this capstone overview is an overview of what the team decided to do. Just briefly wanted to make you aware of the nature of the disparities here in Minnehaha County relative to the juvenile population. The presentation includes a chart that gives you an overview of the breakdown by race for the juvenile population in 2016, and then compares that with the breakdown of juvenile arrests for 2016. And so what you can see here is that while youth of color make up 23% of the population, they represent 56% of juveniles who are arrested. And so this is an ongoing long-term problem we've been working toward but the ultimate goal of the capstone is to try to reduce that disproportionality so that we would see better representation relative to the population size. There are 4 primary strategies that the team has put together to try to accomplish that goal, and so I'll do a real brief overview of them. The first of which is to bring back a consultant who had been here last year, Judge Teskey and his team, to work on putting together an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between the court system, law enforcement, and the school district on how we respond when a juvenile has an infraction or does something that they gets themselves into trouble, so that there's agreement on how we respond as a system to that in order to ultimately prevent involvement in the juvenile justice system at all, or prevent further deeper involvement in the juvenile justice system. And so we've written into the capstone a process that will take us through the development of an MOU, where we can have agreement amongst all of those systems on how we manage and approach these kinds of issues. So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is to hire a diversion coordinator. The diversion coordinator position would be responsible for working with all youth, not just youth of color, but would work with them to conduct an assessment of need and determine what kinds of services might be needed by that youth or that family in order to help address what underlying challenges there might be that might be contributing to the involvement with law enforcement. And so the third strategy is to expand access to culturally informed programming. One of the targeted groups that we know is very overrepresented is our Native American youth population within the data. And we've seen other jurisdictions and other places have programming that's really targeted at those youth and accessing their culture as a way to as a strength that they can build on in order to be successful, stay in school, stay on track. And then the last strategy is to expand access to training on implicit bias. We know that bias can impact how we respond to everyday situations, and certainly how school systems and law enforcement and everyone can respond to juveniles. Sioux Falls PD is planning to do training on implicit bias in the next year, but what this project will allow us to do is expand access to that training and deepen the access to that training. So the way this is all funded, the Council on Juvenile Services, which is Department of Corrections, State Department of Corrections, we submitted a grant proposal to them in the amount of $51,066 to support the work of the Capstone Project. Now, the funding that Council on Juvenile Services uses to support the position is really targeted on addressing racial disparities, and so because our plan is that diversion coordinator would work with all youth, not just youth of color, their funding can't support the full percentage of the FTE. And so what we did was look at the arrest data and determine what percentage of youth who are arrested currently represent those youth of color. And the proposal to the state included 59% of the diversion coordinator position. And then we also included in that grant proposal the facilitation of the school justice partnership discussions, which includes hiring a neutral facilitator locally who could help work through that process of developing the MOU, and also helps cover the cost of Judge Teskey coming and providing his leadership and insight, and then also funds implicit bias training. And so the remaining amount, which would represent that other percentage of the diversion coordinator FTE, is $28,344. And I believe Aaron is going to talk today about that, but the proposal would be to expand the contract that Lutheran Social Services already holds to do that part-time racial and ethnic fairness coordination, to expand that contract to include the diversion coordination. I'll answer questions if anyone.
Is there any questions for Rebecca at this point?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Jason? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jason Leach. I'm a sergeant with the Sioux Falls Police Department, and currently I supervise one of 2 supervisors for our SRO program. We have 14 SROs that are deployed throughout the city of Sioux Falls. And in that program, I had the opportunity to attend the Georgetown Capstone Project with our counterparts here, and it was a great experience for me to go, being one of 2 law enforcement officials in the room, filled with a various amount of disciplines. some of us touched on it already, but our team was probably the most comprehensive team, having a judge, a prosecutor, a defense attorney, having our representative from LSS there as well, a racial and ethics fairness coordinator, and then law enforcement. A lot of the teams were envious of what we brought to the table there, and Carol spoke to it. We are doing great things here in Minnehaha County and in the city of Sioux Falls to perpetuate and to get through this cycle of disproportionality. One of the things that Rebecca talked about was implicit bias training. One thing that we are implementing already for the Sioux Falls Police Department for the 2018 in-service year is fair and impartial policing training, and has a large component of implicit bias training in there. And after going through the Georgetown project and experiencing some of their implicit bias training, it's very, very well done, and it's needed for law enforcement. And it's something that's kind of eye-opening for us. So I fully support that as well. And so all Sioux Falls police officers will be going through that training in 2018 with their in-service. But I also look forward to some additional training that we're looking at through this proposal. One of the benefits to this is also, as you can see, that the funds only cover 59% of this position. The one thing that I'm excited about is that this is definitely going to benefit youth of color, but also it's going to benefit all youth. Our counterparts that presented at Georgetown from Iowa, down in Iowa City, Johnston County, and then Cedar Rapids, there's 2 law enforcement officials there that presented. They said that implementing this diversion coordinator position and having somebody have immediate contact with these juveniles, I'm talking 24, 48 hours, somebody's contacting them and setting up this diversion and working with them. It was more immediate. They weren't seeing people. The recidivism rate was way down. They weren't seeing people. Right now, when I check reports, I see runaway after runaway after runaway, disorderly conduct, theft, theft, theft. We're seeing the same kids doing the same things. So the system right now, no fault of its own, but it's delayed in that. So if we can bring this to the table and have more immediacy and in contact with the youth, I think we're going to see great results. So, thank you.
Jason.
So, Aaron Surska again, just following up with the memo you received in request. But I first just want to echo, I want to thank all of the team that took a full week out of their day job to attend this. It was intense. They equated the work to a master's level class. So as they did maybe enjoy a Georgetown cupcake, so you'll see them probably laughing. They did work very hard and came back with the plan that you see. And this is just one tangible outcome from the investment from this commission in that racial and ethnic fairness coordinator. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for the team who attended. So with that, what I'm bringing to you is a request or approval to fund the other part of the diversion coordinator FTE. There's been lots of research, not just what they learned at Georgetown, but tons of research regarding the effectiveness of having this type of person, one person to track the data, to make sure we have programming, if there's any gaps in programming, and really does stop youth from cycling through and getting them on the right path. So what I'm proposing, or what we're proposing, is that $28,000 be funded by the county, and we're recommending that funding directly come from the diversion reimbursement we receive from the state. So each year, our state's attorney requests reimbursement for each successful diversion. And what we're proposing is reinvesting those dollars into this position so we can have more successful diversions and then increase our reimbursement amount. So hopefully we can make this fully funded through those reimbursement dollars eventually. So the official request would be for a budget supplement to fund the $28,344. As a reminder, last year we got a total of $38,374 from our reimbursement in September of 2017. $14,000 of that went to reimburse the Boy Scouts for their diversion program. So that leaves roughly $24,000 left from that reimbursement funding. We will be getting in theory, we'd be getting another reimbursement check this September as well for our successful diversions over the last fiscal year. Any questions for panels or?
State money that's based on the diversion programs that are successful, and we would hope with a diversion coordinator that number would go up and there would be additional funding through our program. So additional questions for Aaron? Commissioner Barth.
Aaron, thanks for your presentation, and thanks everyone for being here. So the diversion program, tell me how the reimbursement works, because how do we determine if someone's been diverted or if someone was just?
So diversion is under the state's attorney, per our state statute. It's their discretion. They'll get a petition or an arrest report on their desk and decide if this youth has the opportunity to go through a diversion program. As long as they successfully complete that program and don't get rearrested, we consider that a success. So that data is tracked within our state's attorney's office. They complete some paperwork and then submit for the reimbursement.
Carol James again. So when we receive a police report in our office and we review it, by law, we have to divert some kids because there's a law that requires diversion for nonviolent misdemeanor offenses unless they've had a diversion within the past 12 months. So we are diverting and discretionarily diverting cases that we think are appropriate. If they successfully complete diversion, like Aaron said, without reoffending or violating the terms of the diversion in other ways, then those numbers get submitted to the state for reimbursement. Part of the beauty of this diversion coordinator position is that, as Sergeant Leach said, the child and family would be having almost immediate contact with a diversion coordinator. Realistically, how it works now is kid gets arrested today, we get a report tomorrow, we may not get to review it till tomorrow, we might review it Thursday or Friday, then we send it to a diversion program. The diversion program within the probably next week after that sends a letter to the family, then the family receives the letter, then the family has to contact a diversion person to say, yes, I'm interested, no, I'm not, and it might be 3 weeks before they're actually starting a diversion program. With this coordinator position, the family would be having contact with this person within 24 to 48 hours. And that, in the years I've been working for the county for 11 years, and during that time, there have been periods where we have kids that are reoffending so fast we can't even get them into court before they have 4 offenses piling up. This really will help that immensely, and it'll give the family a go-to person immediately to assist them in finding the right solution for their kids. I've heard from countless parents over the years that they were reaching out for help, they were calling the police, and nobody was helping them. This is the help that we want to give them. And so I know that answers a little bit more than with the question you asked, but I just wanted, when Sergeant Leach brought that immediacy issue up, I wanted to add some of my thoughts on that because I can't express to you how important that is in order to get these kids and families on the right track.
Additional questions, Commissioner Bender?
I don't really have a question. I want to thank everybody. To me, it is so powerful that we've got the public defender's office here and the state's attorney's office here and the courts and the police. In our role as county commissioners, we realize that those groups don't always see eye to eye on things. And so to me, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, we need to do whatever we can to keep kids out of the system and on the right track. And, particularly where we have funding that basically makes us self-supportive, I am fully in support of this and would be happy to make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a
Second.
second? Any additional questions or comments? I would too say the amazing presentation, reading the report that was written. Rebecca, I'm not sure if you were the one that wrote it. The report was wonderful. I called staff and said about jumping up and down. Great report. If you want something good to read, grab the folder and read it. It was super exciting what this team has done and just adds on to what we've been trying to do for the last 8 or 9 years. And this is just a huge jump to where we're going. And I think as Minnehaha County moves forward, hopefully other counties will jump on board too, and we will see positive effects to some of the stuff we've done in the last few years. So I do have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and hurry off to your next appointment. With that, we'll move on to item number 10, which is a public hearing and second reading of the rezoning number 18-02 from C Commercial District to the Hoppy PD Plan Development District. David Heinhold.
Good morning, Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. The request here today was set on March 6th from the County Commission for a hearing date March 27th, and it was published in the 3 legal newspapers of the county on the 12th, 14th, and the 15th in the respective newspapers. The request is to rezone a parcel of land from the C Commercial District to the Hoppy Plan Development District, PD. This is located approximately 6 miles east of Sioux Falls. It's right along, if we can go forward.
Highway 42.
There we go. South Dakota State Highway 42. There it is. So it's outlined in red on the map on the screen. It's right on the Lyon County, Iowa state line, as you can see. Just to the south of the property is Grand Falls Casino. And then, as the highway is right there. And then, so you've got to the west, you've got the county highway for Minnehaha County, and then Lyon County to the east of Highway 42, immediately adjacent to that property outlined in red. The entire property encompasses about 9 acres of land and is currently zoned commercial. And the applicant is requesting to rezone the property to include a single-family dwelling to the permitted uses, so mirroring the same district regulations as that C commercial zoning district, as included in your packet of information. The site itself, the applicant has provided a few maps of the site map. The figure shaded in blue is where a potential building which would consist of a number of different uses, that the applicant has also provided the layout of that particular building. This is the initial development plan that the applicant has provided in accordance with, because this property is within the established Red Rock Corridor Overlay District, which sets additional development standards on top of the base zoning districts. So this is part of that process, and as well as the plan development process. This lays forth the amount of parking that's there, the lot in terms of the number of acres for specific uses that are set forth in the applicant's proposed ordinance. And this just shows that building. Obviously, the single-family dwelling is requested for a permitted use. The other uses, if it was like a contractor shop, would have to come back before the county planning commission if they're going to have any outdoor storage. Similar to what the current zoning district would be. This is a proposed building image, which is something that's also required of the Red Rock Corridor plan in the district itself. This property is within. Shows what that building would look like, textures, in the garages and so forth. I went out to the property and visited the site and took a few pictures. This is looking at the driveway that is directly off of that paved road. As you can see, there's some trees in the foreground, and the driveway straight looking towards where a potential building could sit. Just going forward, so the property immediately to the east of the subject property is zoned A1 agricultural. There is a house there, existing farmstead, and there's a few barns there on a smaller lot size, about half the size of this. And there is a shrub row there that you can see. This is immediately adjacent to the state highway, South Dakota State Highway, and you can see there's a few trees there, and there's also a berm, short berm there. And this is looking towards where the sign is located. There's also a sign posted on the property, which indicates the date of this meeting. This is looking towards that site where that proposed building would. This is looking back towards the east on that Iowa County Highway, towards where that truck is. That's where the driveway would be located. And as you can see, the casino is off to the right of the image. Again, to the south of the paved highway towards Iowa, and that along the highway that bends around there, the continuation of 42. And this is looking back towards that county highway and Highway 42. And that's all the pictures that I have for that. The County Planning Commission voted 5-1. Commissioner Doug Odie voted nay on this item at the February 26th meeting. And I've included a copy of those minutes for your review. So the Board of County Commissioners may vote to approve or deny rezoning 1802. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone that has questions? Commissioner Karski.
Was there opposition to this at all?
No opposition was presented at the Planning Commission meeting.
Just a comment, I'll be supportive of this, but starting to make our planned developments smaller and smaller. It seems to me a planned development should be greater in scale and scope, and it just, when I see a 9-acre planned development, we can't, it's currently zoned commercial, I believe?
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
And the reason we have to take it out of commercial is because they're gonna have a residence there? Is that the whole idea?
The applicant is requesting to add a single-family dwelling to the list of permitted uses that you would see in the commercial district currently.
And you can't have a residence on a commercial,
No,
okay? So the only fix is to make it a planned development.
that is correct. That is the request.
There's no better fix, I guess, is,
I'd also remind Commissioner Karski that this is the Red Rock Corridor, and so there is another whole layer of why we are doing this.
okay,
So
okay.
that make,
Madam Chair, I did see a person
Yeah.
in the audience that wanted to.
we'll get to that.
Okay.
Have you any comments at this point?
I guess the only thing I would say is that Doug Odie, who voted against this, had a concern about the traffic. He lives further towards to the west, but he uses this road, Highway 42. And we have people racing to get to the casino and then slowly driving home after they're broke. Anyway, so he feels that traffic does need to be enhanced with additional stuff. But I do believe that this is anticipated in the Red Rock Corridor study. And anyway.
And this is a public hearing, so at this point, if there's anyone who wants to speak in favor of this project, this would be your time to speak in favor. After we've had the opponents, we will give you an opportunity to rebuttal.
Thank you.
And if you'd identify yourself and direct any questions towards the chair.
My name's Don Hoppy. I'm the one who is planning this development. My biggest reason that I want to live there is basically comes down to cash flow. I can sell my property I have now, roll that all over into here. I live in Iowa. I want to move to South Dakota, get South Dakota taxes, and this solves all those problems. It won't cost that much more to me to put a living residence inside this building, so I'm just trying to kill two birds with one stone. You know, I was surprised that South Dakota or Minnehaha County did not have a multi-use zoning ordinance, which would have also worked in this property. The Iowa side had no problem with me doing it, but I wanted to come to South Dakota.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else that wants to speak in favor? Any questions for Mr. Hoppy? Okay, then we would listen to the opponents. If you have a comment, you have to come up to the microphone and identify yourself, name and address, and state your concerns.
Name's Everett Croft, and I'm a property owner, just a kitty corner. So it'd be on the map there. You'll see the green straight ahead is Lyon County. Anyway,
Where's your property at? You see the little red cursor?
kitty corner.
So right there. Okay,
Yes,
right there. Okay.
yeah.
Yep. In
20
Iowa.
23 acres there that I might just add, this Don Hoppy that just spoke wanted to build on my land to start with, but chose to hop the line into South Dakota. So anyway, we have Highway 42 is proposed to come out there in a few years with like 4 lanes, I think it is. So they've been doing a lot of surveying, and I just, you know, with that being an angled intersection and everything, I know in Lyon County they're very concerned about the traffic. And I might just add that where that red dot is right there on the map, you go like a mile to the west, and that's where jurisdiction stops for Iowa, and then South Dakota jurisdiction starts and goes further west. So anyway, I've been trying to build on my property, and jurisdiction has been a big deal in Iowa. So I can't imagine it wouldn't be a big deal here. I mean, 800 feet from the intersection is just one figure that I've always been hearing that nobody gets to build anything closer, gets a driveway anything closer than that to the corner. I guess I would propose to, if this does go, that that driveway gets pushed all the way to the east end of that 9 acres that we're looking at, just for safety reasons. And beyond that, I don't know if he's even going to get a driveway from Iowa, because they're the ones that have jurisdiction on the South Dakota side there. There's also the Lewis and Clark pipeline that goes underneath the driveway there, so there'll be, setbacks and whatever due to that. And so there's a lot of things going on that intersection, and just wanted to make you guys aware of all the things that may come up in the future.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Croft. Are there any questions for Mr. Croft? Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak against? And seeing the other one, I give the proponents an opportunity to rebuttal. Identify yourself again, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
for the
Don
record.
Hoppy again. And I have talked actually with the water, and I know the setbacks and stuff, and I'm perfectly within all their guidelines. I have talked with the Lyon County engineer, where the driveway is now, they're in favor of, they don't have any concerns, and they don't want anything changed there. So I have addressed those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
David, did you have any comments that you wanted to make before? Nope. I bring it back to the commission then. We have listened to proponents and the opponents on this project. And there are 3 of us. We had 1 recused and 1 absent today, so we have to have a unanimous decision on this project. So I'd look for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve it, and I have some comments, assuming.
Second.
I have a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Karski.
Commissioner Barth.
I make motions when you demand it, so. Anyway, I think clearly this is an area that's going to be in transition. There are going to be some changes, and obviously Mr. Hoppy's got to be cognizant of the fact that, it could be 6 lanes by 2080 or something. But hopefully the speed limit from Sioux Falls will be about 10 miles an hour at that point. And no one will go that way. But it, change happens. This is going to change, and I hope that he's making a good decision for himself here. But I support it.
Okay. Any comments? You made your comments. I have a motion and a second to approve. This is rezoning number 18-02 from C Commercial District to the Hoppy PD Planned Development District. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. So, thank you. Item number 11 is Emergency Management 2018 Updates Presentation. Lynn, good morning. We could get Commissioner Bender back here. I'm not sure if she's aware. There she is. Okay. Yeah, we had a motion of 3-0, 1 recused and 1 abstained. So motion still passed unanimously on the last motion. Sorry. Okay, Lynn, we're ready.
Okay, Commissioners, Lynn DeYoung, Emergency Management. Here today to just give you a little bit of an update on some of the projects that we're working on, some of the ones that we have, excuse me, and a little demonstration. So away we go. Just a reminder, Commissioners, we have a staff of 3 over at the Emergency Management Office, and if we, let me see, go to the next slide. Okay, so primarily I work in the 4 cycles of emergency management. Those are going to be listed on the next slide, but mitigation, preparedness, recovery, and response, and I'll touch a little bit on what we're doing in each one of those. We also continue to maintain compliance with the state and local agreement. That grant provides up to 50% of salary and administrative expenses for the 3 FTEs that are currently in the office. So a couple weeks ago, you approved a transfer of general funds into the emergency management fund to make up the rest, and our current amount was about 45% of the total budget comes back. Now, within our budget, we also have those other expenses that are related to the emergency, or to the volunteers that we have, and then expenses that don't qualify. But all of our administrative expenses are submitted into the grant, and then we can get up to 50%. Now, one thing I will tell you and possibly need to come back is the state is looking at adjusting that formula and how they put that back out to the counties. It hasn't been adjusted in 17 years, and we'll have more on that later if it adversely affects us. I am on a work group that was looking and giving recommendations for that, and we're yet to see exactly what the state determines the process would be. We hope that'll be in the next week or so, and if we need to come back to the commission and ask for support in that, we will. And if it stays similar to what we currently see, then we probably won't give an update except for during the budget time. So can also continue to work on grant with the rural fire chiefs. It was a $580,000 on recruit and retention. Every once in a while, you'll see some of those commercials on there trying to gain new firefighters out there. It does bleed over into the EMS section a little bit, and getting new volunteers there, but it's a continual struggle for our volunteer services to get and maintain their personnel that are needed out there. There's just a high call volume, high training needs, and then high demands that other volunteer jobs don't do. It's not like volunteering for your son's basketball team or on the Lions Club. There's a whole lot of other things that go into volunteering as a volunteer fire rescue person. And then within the office, we continue to manage 9 different grants for over $600,000 the last calendar year. Now that may not seem a lot, but within each different grant, there are various things that we have to do. I mean, every one of them is different, so you have to be a grant. You have to work in each one of those grant areas, and we haven't had any negative comments from State Department of Legislative Audit in the last 16 years based on these that were our fault. One was the state's fault, and we followed their guidance, and we're still working on that. So next, here, just once again, I work in a continuous cycle, and we'll talk about each one of those cycles as we go here. So in the emergency planning, one of the things we've been doing the last couple of years is back in 2014, there was a significant flooding event that was predicted on the Big Sioux River. There was lots of plans that were made, especially in the southern area of the Big Sioux watershed, down in the Union County area. Those events never happened, and they never happened because there was poor data out there. However, the state of South Dakota, Union County, and some of the counties spent a lot of money getting ready for something that didn't happen. So the governor's office, with the use of grant dollars, we're in the final stages of producing a inundation mapping project, so that in the areas of South Sioux City, Sioux Falls, Del Rapids, Brookings, and Watertown, we'll have an inundation map that we can show that if 7 inches of rain gets dumped on the watershed, what that does and how we need to prepare within our watershed for that. So it's been a long project, and utilizing once again, state grant dollars managed at the state level, but it will do a lot of good for us, especially in development on areas that are close to the floodplain or areas in Sioux Falls that might be closer to the diversion project and the rest of those. So it has a lot of value for that. The other project I'm working on is a multi-year project. FEMA is looking at reworking the FEMA risk maps. So those are what are utilized for if you buy a new home. If you're in the floodplain, you have to have flood insurance. Currently, some of the methodology that we're using, many of the counties are not happy with, and once we get closer to producing some mapping, we'll bring that to you also, because their methodology really takes that basically the county or the area that they're studying was flat, and we're going to dump 8 inches of rain or 7 inches of rain all at one time. Well, we know, number one, that doesn't happen, and number two, it's going to produce areas because of ponding that have never been affected in the future, and if they're affected, that means they have to buy flood insurance, which would be, based on their mapping, something that just wouldn't do. Consequently, the original map that they came up with in Union County, even FEMA couldn't use, because it was the methodology and the science that they were using was just poor. We continue to update a local emergency operations plan with our stakeholders. We do that late year to make sure that we're in compliance with the state of South Dakota and FEMA as they require it. And then we also work as a fiduciary manager for a hospital coalition grant. As you remember, we do that work in our office. We work with those folks, and it's a well-working grant. There's a lot of good work that's done within that, and that's actually a different region of communities and counties up and down I-29. So as you know, on the emergency response, we continue to work on the governance. Items from the Fitch study, the ordinance should be ready to go. It's in its final adjustments at the state's attorney's office. Maggie's looking through that, and we should have that ready to go in the next couple weeks. In April, if I look back at the timeline, April and May are the time where the commissioner will look at it, and we'll have final commission action, hopefully, which will lead into the budget cycle and then to relicensing those ambulance services for 2019. For EMS training, recruit, and retention, we funded an EMR class. They're currently going through that. We have approximately 15 students, and we continue to fund and have the grant program so that EMTs, if they go to a class or anything, will pay for a certain amount. Their agency will pay for a certain amount, and then the applicant will pay for an amount. And then we're also recertifying those folks too that are currently out there. This last year, I think we recertified about 60. The problem with all of those is, once again, the price goes up. Last year, we paid $75 per person that went to get recertified. This year, that price went up to $220. We didn't have the budget funds, so we only reimbursed at the $100 level. So we went up, but there's still a bunch of costs that are associated with this. So
Why did the cost go up so significantly?
basically, the agency that was doing it could no longer do it. So we went to a third party with Paramedics Plus and District 2 EMTs, and just because of facilities and all the stuff, the cost didn't. They didn't make that decision until October that the cost was going to be $75 to $200, so we had to adjust somehow. I just don't have the funds to do it. So on the electronic patient billing, once again, we're taking the information from Zerker, and then the state implemented their new image trends. We'll be working the two together. Once both platforms get together, Monty and I will bring them together and then be able to pull that information out from Zerker, dump it right into image trends, and then be able to provide the reporting that's required in an electronic format for Dr. Luther through quality assurance, and then through the other offices, or through the other areas that we have within the ordinance that are going to be there. And all that information will be dumped into the medical board, which will be working on protocols to make sure that they're similar within the system, and that they're developed for best practices, so that our patients have a end result of high quality care delivered out in the field. Once again, I work with all the volunteer fire departments, get together with them once a month at their meetings, and then the ambulance services. I will tell you that, and this will be a continual theme, but stress on volunteers, not only having enough volunteers, but mental health stress is something that's great out there. The calls that they're seeing are different than what they saw 20 years ago, not only with overdoses, but suicides and things that weren't as high prevalence 20 years ago are now also becoming part of our community. And that's one of the stresses that I worry about with all of our volunteers out there. On the law enforcement side, we continue to have, obviously, we manage the police reserve program within our office. We continue to train officers. Once we get our the new group trained, we'll have about 55 officers that are available to be utilized by the sheriff's office, the police department, and the highway patrol, and then game fish and parks to supplement any needed activities. Once again, they supplement the fair, they supplement DWI checkpoints and all kinds of special events in and without here. And if we don't have a volunteer in those positions, then the agencies that are there are paying overtime. So it's one of the things we do. And then this year also, Doug within my office trained, I forget, but a lot of 10 or 20 transport officers from the jail, got them qualified, did all the things, so that wasn't a jail responsibility. It was something that we did because we had the capability to do that. We continue to work with Dr. Snell in partnership with him when mass fatality response. and the South Dakota Department of Health. You know, it's always unique to work with Dr. Snell. He's a really smart guy. I really enjoy working with him, and it's an opportunity that I enjoy. But getting those mass fatality assets have all been grant-related here, and we hope to get more so that he's fully functional in the event that we have something. We'll actually be having an exercise on May 21st out at the Sanford Center. We'll let you know again for those new commissioners and some of those old commissioners, or excuse me, other commissioners, whatever you call the rest of the group. If you haven't been there, Cindy or Jeff can update you on what goes in, but.
Are we the old commissioners?
Some of the other
That's exactly
commissioners-
what he was saying.
You know, well, you know, not necessarily, but, little red face here, we'll keep working on. But anyways, it's a great working relationship. It's something we don't like to think about, but something that we do. So as far as recovery, the last recovery event we had was after the ice storm in 2013. We're really not doing any recovery projects because we don't have any as far as we're going. Most of those projects have all been paid for, even though FEMA's has a lot of projects that they're not. You know, I just talked to Garrettson, and they're still waiting for some project money back from a project on the dam a couple years ago. So there is a lot of paperwork and red tape and slowness involved in the federal system. Mitigation, once again, is an effort to reduce loss to life and property, and reducing the impacts during this disaster. If you remember, back in late September, early October, we had the Minnehaha County, Lincoln County Disaster Mitigation Plan that we brought, that I indicated was done, that planning process. It was sent over to the state just about a week ago. The state actually finished their review process, so their review process was 6 months. Once the federal gets done, then we'll bring it back to the commission for a final commission, and then all of the other agencies that are out there, units of government that choose to sign on. This is an important plan for them. If we don't have a mitigation plan, then we're not allowed to request FEMA disaster dollars in the event we have an incident. So it's something that, like I said, it's not a very fun thing to do. It's pretty dry in my neck of the woods, but it's something that has to be done. Doug also, in my office, is a member of the safety committee. They do the walkthroughs and keep us in compliance with the South Dakota risk benefits pool. You'll notice that every year he come and does a safety report. Quite often, they'll talk about the awards they're winning because we're doing back injury prevention and because we're doing the safety audits and all those things. So that's one of the things we do in our office, is to continue to make sure we're safe, not only here in the administrative building, but those other ones, and that if there is an incident, injury, crash, whatever else it is, on the county side, that we're investigating those so that we have the ability to prevent them in the future. One of the other things that I'm involved in with a group of partners from around the city and is expanding into the state of South Dakota is called Stop the Bleed. And basically Stop the Bleed is a program that in the next, hopefully 6 to 8 months you'll see, and if I can do a demonstration here, this is why I brought
I
my
was
left
going to
hand.
give you a hand, but I see you have extra.
So Stop the Bleed, basically, you know, in 2015, the federal government came and was working with a bunch of healthcare providers, and they came out with the Hartford Consensus. And basically, that documentation says, you know, during acts of active shooter events, mass shootings, all of those other things, we're seeing too many people die because of the protocols that we have in place are not there. So law enforcement is actually doing different things on their side, but then on the medical side, we're also doing different things and noticing that if you get shot in the arm or an appendage during an active shooter event, those are survivable events. But they're survivable if you do the right things. If you just do not do the right things and do not have training, then you probably aren't going to survive. You'll bleed out. So that's why it's called Stop the Bleed. I'm working with Dr. Pearson and Dr. Timmerman, Aaron Beck from Avera, Kevin Slosher from Avera, and we're really taking this as a community approach so that in the future, where you see a public access defibrillator, it's our hope that you'll see a Stop the Bleed kit. And what Stop the Bleed is it's basically a program that teaches lay people how to utilize a tourniquet, how to place a tourniquet on if and when there's an active shooter event. So say for discussion, we have an active shooter event, a kit similar to this would be placed at or near a public access defibrillator. That kit includes several tourniquets and all the things that are needed to prevent loss of life from a gunshot or any other things, and we'll talk about those. So the kit includes 5 or 6 packets like this, and there's the gauze in there, there's shears in there in case you have to cut stuff apart, there's the medical stuff, but most importantly, there's a tourniquet. So the application of the tourniquet, the idea is that we're gonna teach the lay public how to do this, just like the public access defibrillator. So I would be able to go into a school, I'd go to the Lions Club, you know, any of those clubs, and be able to teach them how to do that. Quickly, my gunshot wound is here. The tourniquet can be placed. So the tourniquet is placed above the wound in an area such as this. It's put on. So that was step 1, is getting it on with the Velcro. And then we're gonna turn this windlass rod here, so it's tight on this one because it's a dummy. I only can get 1 turn on. So I'm gonna get 1 turn on, and then lock it in place. Cover it, and then we're back to here. Now, given this situation, if this is an arterial bleed, that should stop the bleeding, prevent your loss of life. The ideal, like I said, once again, is to be able to teach civilians, anyone in any area that might need it, how to do this and save the life of a person as a result of an active shooter event. In South Dakota, now we don't see a whole lot of those, although we have seen them within our area. But most likely what these will be utilized for is motorcycle accidents and farm accidents. Those are the highest prevalence that we see coming into the ER when you talk to the trauma coordinators. But as we go in the future, this will be ingrained in society, just like CPR. If you're at a CPR event, we're going to have these. So we're actively seeking grant dollars right now for this, both on the public side, public grants, and then on the private side, we'll be going out and reaching out to some of our community partners. Our goal is to first get them in all the schools, and then look at expanding there to government programs and then other programs, but having a kit that is similar so that anywhere you go in South Dakota, we have the same equipment, just like in public access defibrillators.
Lynn, do you know how much those kits cost?
What we're trying to do, the federal kit, or the Stop the Bleed kit from the federal side was originally $600. We said that's not gonna work in South Dakota. It's not gonna work in South Dakota because it costs too much money, and it's not gonna work in South Dakota because it has equipment, or it had equipment called Quick Clot in it that expired after 2 years. So we're, currently this kit of 6 or 5 or 6 is about $200, and we're going out to actually have it bid, once again, on the state side, so we can get it down to a reasonable cost, so that reasonable people can purchase it. A kit, it'll also be available, so maybe, you need one in your hunting bag or whatever else it is. You could put this component here about $35, and that's a pretty good amount for someone, or a farmer could buy it for just to have on his farm, because once again, a PTO accident or anything like that. So we're actively working that now. Like I said, we actually got a statewide call today on how we do this, how we get it into schools and government building and churches, or anyone else that wants it. So it's a big program that the next couple of years is going to be something we're working on. So, okay, reminder, we continue to work on with the volunteers. Those are the numbers. They continue to donate a lot of service to the county and do a lot of great training. The one above you, the one on the dive team there, that was just in the last couple of weeks. We were out in McCook County helping do a special project out there for them. It's a great training event for us. It keeps the guys involved and everything. So those people are servicing. One of the things that I find with my volunteers, especially, except for the emergency calls, we're finding that our volunteers like to be scheduled. So one of the things I've implemented with the search and rescue is nobody likes to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go assist rural volunteer fire departments because they're sleeping and it's a change in demographics. So we've actually started scheduling them. So it says, all right, we need 2 on the schedule every night, all month long, and they've kind of taken to that. Says, yeah, I can volunteer on Tuesday night from 9 o'clock. We've got our set up from 9 at night until 5 in the morning so that they can get to work. the next day, and they seem to be embracing that. And in the past, it was just kind of an all call. Well, that doesn't work anymore in volunteer schedules. So we're adjusting based on how our volunteers need to adjust so that they can stay with us, but that so they also can work in their family and work life. Last year, you guys put in the budget for a new vehicle, so it's always nice for us to do that. Here's a picture of it. We started out with a budget of $53,000 from the commission, and then they said whatever else you need, you have to find internally or grant dollars for. We did. Final cost on this was about $80,000, so we had to adjust and do different things. But this does a lot of the things we need it to do. One of the big things is it helps Dr. Snell and his mobile autopsy assets get to where it needs to go. So thank you for that. So just in conclusion, once again, we see our grant documentation as a result of other lessons learned and other levels of government becoming different. There are more things that are being asked of us, both documentation-wise and finance office-wise, so we continue to do those. We continue to work at a high level with the counties within our region that the state's put us in, and really everybody else but Lincoln, Lake, Moody, Turner, Clay, Union counties. We work with all those, and we provide information back and forth and services back and forth on the emergency management side, so that's good. Once again, there's continued pressure in our volunteer services. Both fire rescue and EMS are seeing pressure from work or personnel pressure. You know, it's just not like it used to be. Workforce issues and then financial issues they're seeing, and we'll see some of those as you come up in the budget discussions this next couple of years, or the next the next couple of months, is some of those requests that are probably going to be different than they have in the past. Everything we have is expensive. That's why we look for grant dollars. This afternoon we have a grant meeting trying to find grant dollars for these and some of the other things within our region for Homeland Security, but it's all expensive. And usually grants are good at buying it the first time, not so much the second time. We'll see more of that when we do radios again in the future. And then the other fun thing is we're hosting the 2018 State Emergency Management Conference here in Sioux Falls in September. So that's always nice to get that conference back and show the rest of the state, you know, what we have to offer here, what we do, the great community that Minnehaha County and the city of Sioux Falls is, and the support that we receive from our local elected officials. So be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for Lynn? Commissioner Barth?
Lynn, I tell you what, as I listen to you, I remember a bunch of the stuff I've forgotten. And, just thinking about disaster regulations with FEMA and how if I order road barricades, they're not reimbursed. If you order them, they are reimbursed by FEMA, for example. And also, looking at your dive team, we ought to have them show up for some recognition sometime. Doug, who was here, is on your dive team, right? I mean.
Yep. At one point, Doug actually was on my dive team, and we've done some different things. He's not anymore, but he's still one of those people I go back to and ask some great questions to, because he's a great person. And, really that's what all of our volunteers are. They're great people, and whether they're with us or without us, we can call on them when they need everything. So.
And as we study the floodplain and stuff, we learned some different things when we had a flood a couple years back, when the crops were in the field, right?
Right now, there's a flood warning on the Big Sioux River and everything, and I went and did my yearly check of that. But we're seeing all kinds of differences based on crop cover, time of year, tiling, amount. I mean, it's just, there's a whole lot of stuff. And as far as each one of those goes, really every flood is a different flood for us right now. And that's why we're studying, and that's why the inundation maps are critical for us, and some of those other FEMA maps that they're doing. I've been in my position now for 16 years. We've had 3 or 4 different times where we've had to, or I think twice, where we've had to sandbag the renter area, which is 2 more times than it had been previously. So all of those things are changing. So it's nice, at least for me, that I have a lot of background information to do that for the future. But yeah, all those things are changing a lot.
You do a lot of stuff, and I do appreciate being your liaison.
So thank you.
Additional comments? I just wrote down one comment, and that was electronic monitoring in the medical boards. About 2 years ago, we were talking about the importance of getting it, and it's exciting to hear that we're actually getting there quicker than maybe anticipated that we would. It's always good to be able to use technology to make things safer and better and to make sure we have best practices for our patients and maybe less errors.
Yep, and once again, those volunteers out there and all the services do a great job. It's just that the stresses on being a volunteer in those type of agencies are great. Like I said, both financial and training-wise and all those other things. So with the Fitch report, we've seen a lot of good recommendations, but don't kid yourself. Things are changing probably faster in some areas than we anticipated, and we're going to see that in the next couple months. And that'll be something that the commission will have to look at with the ordinance on the EMS side. And there's going to be decisions and determinations made that maybe aren't as comfortable as they have been in the past. It's just we're seeing that change, and as Commissioner Barr said, change isn't bad all the time. But we've got to recognize that it's different than what it has been in the past. So,
Thank you, Lynn, for your time.
certainly.
That will move on to item number 12. Consider a bid results and award recommendation for project MC 18-04, microsurfacing of 10.6 miles of various county roads. Bid was opened on March 7th. Good morning, DJ.
Good morning, Commissioners. DJ Boothie, Highway Superintendent. The microsurfacing project is one of the projects that we bid on March 7th. It's one of the pavement preservation tools that we have in our toolbox that we try to do every single year. This year we bid a project for 10.6 miles, and the low bid was from Aztec, Asphalt Surfacing Technologies, for $433,627.97. They were the lowest of 3 bidders, and we're pretty competitive with what we had estimated with our engineer's estimate. So I would like to ask you for your approval of a contract, and so we can move forward with construction this summer.
Make a motion to approve that contract.
Second, and a question.
Question.
Have we done work with Asphalt Surfacing Technologies before, DJ?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
They did, I believe, the first project that we did for microsurfacing, which I think was in 2013.
Yeah, their bid significantly less is what I asked, so, yeah.
They're a good company.
Okay, good, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 13 is consider bid results and award recommendations for project number 18-02, asphalt surface treatment, chip sealing for 57.4 miles of various county roads. Bids were opened March 7th. DJ?
Commissioners, basically the same as the previous agenda item. This is another tool in our toolbox. We did not do a chip seal project last year, so we have 57.4 miles to do this year. And the price is pretty competitive. Again, this is Aztec. This time we had 5 bids, and 4 of those 5 bids were just a little bit under our engineer's estimate, so we're pretty happy with these bids, all grouped pretty tightly together. So I ask for your approval of this contract as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
And a second. Commissioner Bender.
DG, I know that you guys do a good job of keeping track of the quality and the condition of the pavement. I'm just curious, you said we didn't do any chip seal last year. Was that a matter of not needing it, a matter of priorities and budgeting?
So we've talked about focusing on the right treatment at the right time quite a bit. Chip seal projects, just in their nature, are very cost competitive when you have a large volume of chip sealing to do. And so the number of miles that we had that were identified to be chip sealed last year was pretty small. I think it was probably 10 miles or so. And we knew that that type of a project would not be very cost competitive in the market. And so a lot of these treatments, you can do it within a range of 1 or 2 years. And so we knew that holding off on those 10 miles and doing those this year along with a larger volume of work would still be acceptable for our system.
Thanks.
I have 2 comments. One, I'm sure with this company being able to do both projects has helped with their bidding. I'm sure that's what they were hoping because they're mobilizing one time to do a very large amount of projects. And my second comment would be, could you just give a really brief description of what microsurfacing is and chip sealing, just for our audience, also for me to remind me of what we're doing, just they're different products or different ways of doing things.
Sure, very different products. So for a chip sealing project, what you would typically do is put down a layer of oil on the existing pavement and put down chips or small crushed rock. We have a pretty good source of that here with our Sioux quartzite. And so we put down that rock and then roll over it with asphalt rollers, basically, or wheel rollers, to push that rock into the oil layer that you'd put down on the asphalt pavement. And then once it's all compacted and rolled into the oil, then we apply another top coat of oil as a surface coat, and that's basically to hold those rocks down in place so they don't chip windows and come out of the pavement, and they last a lot longer that way. And so this treatment is intended to be a cheap treatment to put a new ride surfacing and seal coat over the existing asphalt pavement. Micro surfacing is more of a heavy duty type of treatment. Rather than put oil and rocks out on the pavement, it goes through a process in an asphalt plant, or similar to an asphalt plant, where you mix those oils and rocks together, similar to how you do with asphalt pavement, and then you put it into a paver out on the road, and you pave that micro surfacing treatment a 1/4 inch thick maybe on that existing asphalt road, and then you roll it and compact it similar to how you would on an asphalt treatment. And so it's a little bit heavier duty of a treatment, a little bit more expensive of a treatment, but still much less than an asphalt overlay.
I have one more comment, and that's on the chip seal. In the years past, when they would put the pink rock on, you'd see almost windrows on the side. But because we add an extra layer of oil on top, that keeps those windrows from piling up on the edges of the road, I'm assuming.
It does a lot better job. They're still going to be there a little bit, because when they place the chips and then they roll them, some of those chips work themselves off to the side of the road, and so some of them will be there. But if we don't put the asphalt oil over the top of the chips, then a significant amount will work their way off to the edge. So the majority of them we recapture and are able to use, but there are still a few that get pushed off to the side.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the chip seal project. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask DJ a question on another subject.
Commissioner Barrett?
A bit ago, we approved a planned development over by the Iowa Casino, and there was some discussion about the road on the border with Iowa. You know, we have Highway 150 going in that direction, and it's who's got the jurisdiction, and what would be on your mind if an Iowa development wanted access to our highway? Would you approve it automatically? Would you say no? Would you say call my boss?
So the way that borderline county highways operate is you have to have an agreement in place with the border county. And so we have an agreement in place with Lyons County on who's going to actually take over the jurisdiction of that roadway. We have 7 miles of highway from basically the Big Sioux River to the South Dakota-Minnesota border. And so there was an agreement in place a long time ago, probably around the time that those roads were originally constructed, that we would take the west 3.5 miles and they would take the east 3.5 miles. So anything that is developed, whether it's in Minnehaha County or Lyons County, in that east 3.5 miles, that would require an access to that roadway. If they approach us, we ask them to go to Lyon County, and Lyon County takes care of that. If it's in the west 3.5 miles, regardless of which state that development is occurring in, Lyon County would tell those people to go to us for any access issues.
If I might, we actually had this come up last night also with a CAFO east of Garrettson, where they border on a township road from Minnesota and are going to need access, and that was one of the considerations. The township officials from Minnesota were here and weren't happy. Do they have to give us access, or the South Dakota applicant access to the road, or is that?
I don't think that anybody has to give access necessarily what you would hope would be that if there's bordering roadways and they are from 2 different jurisdictions, those 2 different jurisdictions are able to work what the best solution is. Let's just say arbitrarily, not necessarily that situation, but a township said, no, absolutely not, and then a different bordering township said, no, absolutely not. you have to allow legally by state law in South Dakota, at least, I'm not sure how Minnesota works, you have to allow access to all property. There's a lot of guidelines that go along with allowing that access. And so if two jurisdictions were both saying absolutely no access, I guess would be that you'd end up probably in court and somebody would have to allow access.
That's why we have a team of attorneys. Anyway, thank you,
Right.
DJ.
Thank you. No, we had a
Thank you.
motion and a second. Did we vote?
Yes.
Did we vote?
We did, okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I had the motion here. Okay, item number 14 is consider motion to authorize the sheriff's office to purchase 7 2018 Ford Utility Interceptors patrol vehicles for the city, from the city of Sioux Falls, contract number 18-002 for $29,557.43 each. I had to think, because I was like, it's more than that.
Yes.
That's the each price.
That's the each price. Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Bosman with the Sheriff's Office. I have before you this morning request to authorize the Sheriff's Office to purchase 7 of the 2018 Ford Utility. It's an SUV version of the police package vehicle. The SUV version has worked out very well for us in the last few years. It has enough size requirements inside the vehicle, so if we have to have 2 officers in the vehicle for training purposes or maybe a ride-along of some sort, there's more room for people to sit with all the computers and equipment, center console, as well as the storage needs that we need in the back for all of our emergency response equipment. They're an all-wheel drive vehicle. They're V6. They still get a very good gas mileage. We try to be conservative with that option as well, too. We're fortunate enough to be allowed to piggyback off the city of Sioux Falls bid, which they have awarded to Nelson Auto Center out of Fergus Falls, Minnesota. I've contacted the dealership up there. They've agreed to honor the contract pricing, which is something we look forward to doing. And at this time, we have budgeted money in the 2018 budget that we'd like to purchase 7 vehicles with.
Questions? Will they be delivering these for us?
They do deliver, and that's part of the contract, yes.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions?
And make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 15, thank you, Joe. Item number 15 is authorize the chairman to sign the state crisis grant subcontract between Augustana Research Institute and Minnehaha County for services related to the 2018 Criminal Mental Health Summit. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, Erin Surska, Minnehaha County Commission Office. This morning, I'm asking for approval from the commission for the chair to sign the subcontract with Augustana Research Institute to help us with the Mental Health Criminal Justice Summit that we're having this week. The amount is $2,000, and what that covers is the creation of the survey, implementation of the survey, and analysis of the survey, as well as doing grant evaluation. They're also doing an in-kind of offering the space at no cost for us to use for the summit. This is all paid through the state crisis grant that we received. So I'm just asking for approval to execute the contract.
Questions? Motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Aaron. Item number 17 is liaison reports. Are there any reports?
Madam Chair, being as we have Scott Anderson here, I think maybe a small report on last night's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, which when I started my truck, the clock said 10:28 on my clock radio there. So we had a fairly long meeting, and they never gave me a break. I had to do all the work.
We did have a long meeting. Once again, Scott Anderson, Planning Director. We had 5 CAFOs last night. We managed to hear all of them. We approved 3 out of the 5. 2 were continued for some additional information, and as Commissioner Barth indicated, to work out some details like with the township and some access issues. So landscaping, they're working on those. We filled the room, so we didn't have to use the overflow room, so we luckily were able to get everyone in this room, which was surprising. We had a very good meeting, and we met with the city of Del Rapids last night. We went over some ordinance changes. I think one of the things that was very interesting was that we had basically 3 of our local communities here participating in our planning commission process. We had the city administrator for Garrettson was here, and he was dialoguing with us. We had Teresa Seidel from the city administrator from Hartford was here. We had her dialoguing on some of our planning and zoning issues. And then, of course, we met with the city of Del Rapids. So I think that just shows that, you know, our office, we have a wide reach of people that we're working with. And sometimes you don't think that, you know, the public may not be aware that we work closely with Hartford, we work closely with Del Rapids, we work closely with Garrettson. So trying to make our planning issues seamless and cooperating with all of our municipalities.
Thank you, Scott.
Madam Chair, the one fellow from Garrettson that spoke actually is a candidate for mayor there, is on the city council, and happens to be the secretary for the Sioux Empire Chess Foundation. But we we also had that was a CAFO that had a border on to Minnesota, and we had township officials from Minnesota at our meeting. We had
That's correct.
neighbors from Minnesota at our meeting, and so that one was deferred. We also had another one deferred where there was no stated opposition, but they had not gotten sign off from the neighbors who just weren't going to sign yet, so we deferred it, thinking that the applicant can get that accomplished. So really, the staff tells me we've had 2 CAFOs in the past, but last night we had 5, and it was a lot of work. And Scott, while I've got you, we have some statistics on property construction here in Minnehaha County as we go into this year. It seems like the money people is spending is going up.
Well, what's interesting about every month I do an annual do a monthly building permit report, and I think what is interesting about that is it allows you to track building activity, and of course that's very subject to weather, and we are off to a good start for the year. I think it's something that you just continually need to monitor, because this fluctuates as developments come in or don't materialize. But we, you know, are plugging right along, and then a lot of that is going to depend on our numbers. Oftentimes get bumped up quickly when you have a commercial activity or a commercial building permit, because you know, you may have like an $8 million building project where that may represent 20 single-family residences. So one large commercial building permit can really skew these numbers one way or the other. So,
well, it's just nice to see that we're well beyond 3 times as much in construction value over last year, and with 86 permits issued this year versus 55 in the same period last year, it's
and
things are picking up.
And some of that is, and I think I reported on this. We reported on this before, but a lot of that is because of that change finder that we're working with equalization, and we have been finding many properties that have not obtained building permits. And we are in the process of working with those property owners to bring them into compliance and getting them to come in and get building permits. So some of that is as a result of that change finder.
Additional questions for?
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, being as we've had a complaint about telephones being answered at the
Can we
treasurer's
do that in
office.
old business and finish or did you
I was going to bring in a
report?
liaison.
Okay,
I'm
that's fine.
Pam's
Yep.
liaison, so
Okay.
I've invited Pam to come up and maybe respond to the concern. We had a complaint by a person that let the phone ring for over 3 hours, Pam, and didn't get an answer, and then your office was closed.
So the 3 hours was just before 5, are you saying? But I don't know what
I guess I
closing
don't
has
know
to do.
exactly,
Oh.
but it was at least 2 hours and 45 minutes of office time.
Well, the problem is that when we get really busy, and to keep the wait times down for live bodies that are in our line who came down here and took their time to do that, they're our first priority. And, because you always have that choice to come down too, if you want to wait on the phone. we have to use the people in the back office. We have, most of the time now, we're using our back office people quite frequently during the day for fairly, not the entire day, but for periods of the day. You know, lunch hours, break times, those kinds of things, they pretty much have to fill in at the windows when people go to break. Because we need to have at least 3 people gone to lunch or breaks all the time. So that means you're a few windows short. So that's how we usually use our phone person as well as the other back office people. And then some of the rest of us just pull people in because we don't have the windows to accommodate the public. But the wait time in the office now is between an average of 5 and 15 minutes most of the time. That's not to say it's never longer than that, but it's probably not. I don't think it's normal that people would wait that long on the phone, but I also realize that it probably doesn't necessarily not ever happen. And I don't really know how to eliminate the problem unless you really want to hire more people and have a couple people. Right now, we have 3 backup phones. One is the actual phone person, and then 2 others are able to back up the phone. So if that line's full, then they'll roll over to like my desk, they'll roll over to like Patty's desk or Kim's desk, so.
You know, I see that our IT person is here. I wonder if our phone system could do something like your expected wait is 117 minutes or something like that. I've gotten that kind of recording before, calling tech support or something. And you know, even like calling the airlines, they'll say, give us your number and we'll call you back within, 3 hours or something.
Well, I've helped people call like the Social Security office to get some information from them that they need to fill out like their elderly freezes and stuff. And 3 hours is nothing.
Commissioner Bender.
Well, I mean, I think obviously our goal is not 3 hours. I am curious what kind of reports you get. Are you monitoring how the average wait time?
We
And
look at
I
it.
also agree with Commissioner Barth. There's got to be a technological assist here where you could at least have people, give people the option, let them know that wait times are excessive right now, and we will call you back,
We
within
say
24
that
hours.
on the phone. And we do monitor, we get a list, we keep track. We look at them all the time.
Do you think you could provide a copy of that to the commission so we could
Sure.
get some kind of an idea of what kind
Not a
of?
problem.
I think last year we put an additional person in your office, and I'm concerned about how many hours are we spending, do we have somebody 8 hours a day on the phone? I mean, hopefully we can look at that too, how much time is actually spent on the phone answering the phone calls on a day-to-day basis. I mean, are we getting 6 phone calls and we're having somebody cover 6 phone calls for 8 hours as long as somebody's available? I think it's great that our wait times in line are only 5 to 10 minutes. That's fantastic. But if I don't live in the state, or if I am disabled or whatever, and I have to sit on the phone for 3 hours to answer my question, it's not really fair to me that I am not physically able to come to the office for a 10-minute wait, but I'm on the phone and I have to wait for 3 hours. And I realize that that's an extreme amount, but I think it is important that we look at the times.
You can
We
look
have
at
had
the
this
times.
conversation
Not a problem.
before, and find out what the staff level is for the amount of phone calls that we're having, and see how we can fix this. Obviously, this is your problem, but it comes to us as the commissioners. You as an elected official are in control of the situation, but it still comes back to us.
Well, truthfully, I'll be as efficient as you want me to be. You just look at the numbers and tell me what you want them to be, and then we'll just hire the appropriate number of people. I have no problem with that.
Commissioner Karnstein.
Question is, how
If I
efficient
could,
do you want to pay for?
Last year, with our facility study through USD, one of the programs that was made available to all departments across the county was they use their graduate students for what's called lean, and it's just taking an outside look. And I know a little bit about this program because my son, when he went to USD, was involved in it, and it basically lets you have outside eyes look at how you're managing, and allows you, and I'm sorry, I'm really not feeling well and on some drugs, so I'm trying to collect my thoughts as I go here, but allows you to take recommendations from the USD Business School on how to use the staff and people that you have, and I just encourage you to, that program I believe is still available for anybody that wants to use it, and it's free, and you can take the recommendations and use them or not. I mean, it's your department and you're an elected official, but I'd encourage you to accept their offer to at least have somebody come in. It would help the grad school, it would help the business students, and it would just show an effort to work that way?
Well, we listen to what our IT, we look at their reports, and we do the best we can do. And like I said, I always hear that we don't have any money and we can't spend it, so I'm fairly fiscally conservative. And I think there's a certain level of efficiency, and I guess if people aren't happy with the level or the way I run my office, they can choose to get rid of me the next election.
Well, thanks for coming up, Pam. And I would say that standing in line for 3 hours is obviously a crazy thought, but in a sense, that's what's happening for people who are waiting for a phone answer for 3 hours. And so you can decide if people are going to wait 22 minutes in line or if they're going to wait 6 minutes in line. And I think the line does move very quickly. But you can also decide if people are going to be waiting 6 minutes for an answer or 300 minutes for an answer.
People on the phone have the option to not hang on. They don't have to wait for 2 hours. They don't have to wait for 15 minutes. No, but when they get, if they have to do business at our office, there's some things that have to be taken care of there, and you can't do it anywhere else. So those people do have to stand in line, and they also have, and they took the time to come get in their cars, come down here, take off work, come do their break, lunch, or whatever.
Well, Pam, thank you for coming up, and we will look forward to those reports from IT to see how we can make this process more efficient.
That would be good, but I'm still running the office.
Any other additional liaison parts? Commissioner Karski?
Last Friday, we had the triage policy committee meeting, and I asked Aaron to come in and kind of give a briefing to you on that as a report. And also on Wednesday and Thursday, we have the mental health and, I'm going to get this wrong, mental health and criminal justice summit meeting that starts Wednesday night and goes all day Thursday, and we'll have close to 80 attendees of that and people coming in across the country. So just kind of want to fill you in on what's happening there. So, and not me, but have Aaron do it. Thank you, Aaron.
Good morning, Commission. Last Friday on the 23rd, we had our kind of final meeting of phase 1 of the Triage Center Concept Planning Project. We were able to do that through a grant from the MacArthur Foundation, and we're very grateful to have done that process. We went on 4 site visits, held a sequential intercept mapping workshop, held over a dozen meetings, including stakeholders from across 20 organizations in our county. So last Thursday, we presented our baseline report and our draft implementation plan of how we're going to recommend we move forward with the different phases and stages to implement that concept within our community. So we're very excited. And as Commissioner Karski said, we're hosting a summit, a mental health criminal justice summit at Augustana University. It starts Wednesday at 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Thursday 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're flying in, or not flying, some are driving, but we have 6 out-of-state speakers that do a phenomenal job, and close to 100 attendees, including state-level leaders, local stakeholders, and practitioners. So we're very excited to be able to spread the knowledge and move this project forward.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. And I believe I saw in the paper this morning that the state legislature is going to be doing a summer study on mental illness and state services. So as Minnehaha County continues to move forward, and the state is also working on mental illness issues, and hopefully our state as a whole will make huge progress. Additional liaison reports, I still have.
I'd like to say one more thing, which is that I'd like to give a shout out to the Sheriff's Department that sent a deputy to our meeting last night. It was a very nice and civil meeting. I don't know if a uniformed officer was part of the civility, but that's how it worked out. So thank you, Sheriff Milstead.
Thank you. Okay, and as I stated last week, I'm going to give a report on the NACO conference that I went to. I wrote up some notes. I will try to make it brief just because we've already been here for a while, and I know we have more stuff going on after this. So Aaron Surtzka and I flew out early. Thank goodness we flew out on Thursday because I was supposed to be at a Department of Corrections or Department of Justice meeting on Friday, which got canceled due to a nor'easter that blew in, which kept Commissioner Barth and all the rest of the South Dakota delegation and many people from across the United States from even reaching Washington, D.C. Aaron and I were able to make it in, had a couple meetings set up outside of the conference. One was with Evelyn McCoy, who works with Urban Institute and is contracted by MacArthur Institute. As you know, we have an application out to them for additional funds as we work with MacArthur. We also met with Mr. Jed Miller, who works with, has been contracted by the Arnold Foundation, and we discussed the public safety assessment and its implementation. And Mr. Miller has been tasked with making the PSA accessible across the nation. When we applied, they were doing specific sites, and now they're hoping to push PSA out across the United States. And so that's what he's tasked with doing. Both very interesting meetings. Friday was the day that I was supposed to do the Department of Justice Roundtable, which was canceled, but Aaron and I also had meetings on the Hill and just went, all of our delegation was in South Dakota. How inconvenient. We're there and they're here. Talked to staff members about Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act, Pretrial Integrity and Safety Act, the Second Chance Act, crime litigation, along with some of the trucking issues that are plaguing our trucking industry right now, which is e-logs and the hours of service. Also visited a little bit about veterans issues and some of the things that are important to our veterans in the state of South Dakota. Some of the different meetings I attended the Western Region group meeting. In our conversation, obviously going into this, didn't know what it was going to be, but they centered the whole conversation on the positives of marijuana. And the people who, the states that are in support of marijuana, all had their talking points about how great marijuana is and that we should all legalize it, and that NACO should be a supportive organization to legislation for marijuana. I was under the weather at the time and frankly caught off guard. There was only one other county or one other state that got up and spoke against marijuana. I personally did not. I definitely think it's something that we need to keep an eye on, as this is our national organization, and currently they are against it since it's federal illegal. But it was an interesting conversation to listen to. I did the moderation for the Stepping Up presentation, which was communication strategies on county efforts to reduce the number of people with mental illnesses in the jail. The speakers basically talked about using social media. One place in California had actually worked with reporters and done an ABC News report, which was several nights. And they also talked about web page and getting the word out, just so that we're making our citizens aware of what we're doing with Stepping Up and how we're moving forward, and controlling the message to get the positive message out, or at least the message out of what we're doing, and not being reactive to situations. That being said, on May 16th, Stepping Up program, which is a NACO association program, is doing a day of action where they're encouraging counties who are stepping up counties, which Minnehaha County, Cottington County, and I believe Lincoln County are the stepping up counties in the state of South Dakota. But they're encouraging us to host events, to participate in local activities, or to share the progress that we're making with mental illness in our jails, and basically to raise the awareness and the understanding of the issues. They've given us some guidelines on how to do a call to action. I have talked to Aaron Sertzka, and we will see if we can put something together in a very short amount of time, whether if it's just even an article for the Argus Leader or something. With the Triage Center, that is our mental Stepping Up project, and we have some really positive things to do. And so I think with everything that's happening right now, we will have something to report positively for that. I sit on the Justice and Safety Board, which we approved a lot of resolutions. I was going to go through each one of them. I'm not going to, just in the matter of time. I would strongly encourage you to look at our last issue of the County News that comes from NACO. It basically outlines every conference or conference breakout session I went in here. Some of the reports are really, really good. It also talks about all the different justice and safety resolutions that we discuss, instead of me going through each one of them. But there was one I wanted to highlight, and particularly since Lynn is here too, Florida brought forth one resolution that would urge Congress to enact legislation regarding the service life of fire protective clothing, and encourage the National Fire Protection Association and amend Standard 1851 that mandates retirement of clothing based on its manufacture date. So this probably doesn't affect us, but in the state of in the county of Florida that was presenting this, they have a warehouse full of fire safety clothing that is still in the original packages and has never been opened. And according to this one standard, they have to shred them. And she said the cost of shredding them and getting rid of them is astronomical, and they're not allowed to donate them to volunteer fire departments across the United States, which would be much cheaper. It's based completely on manufacture date and not on the actual service viability of the product. Is it still safe for our people? So they have actually been shipping them overseas because they can do that cheaper than shredding them and putting them in their landfills. So that obviously passed unanimously on our board, and we'll be bringing that resolution to Congress and hopefully an easy fix. She talked about numbers and how much just their specific county is wasting by throwing away perfectly good equipment. So, like I said, I won't go through the rest of the resolutions. They're all very interesting. I encourage you to look at the magazine. I looked at it last night after I had written up all my notes. I will give one other quick one, and that was that 50 years ago, under President Lyndon B. Johnson, a National Crimes Commission was formed, and an extensive report was written. Now there's a project under the American Society of Criminology that has hired experts to review those recommendations and do researches on what changes in policy developments have happened in the last 50 years in hopes that this commission will, the commission will be writing a report on what we could do in the future, and in hopes that Congress would recommission a new National Crime Commission to look at different things. They came to our committee asking for suggestions on what possible projects they could look at if we did have a National Crime Commission. Some of the ones we came up with: mental illness, immigration policies, cyber security, bail bonds, pretrials, drugs, DUI, specialty courts, et cetera. There was a whole lot of very interesting ones. And I'm going to give one more, sorry. Small counties. A township or a county in Pennsylvania gave a presentation which it was called "Small Towns Can Use Video Text to Enhance Crime Fighting." It was like something out of the 27th century or something. They had basically put cameras all over their very small county, and they were taping people everywhere. And to me, it was a little scary. Somebody left a coat on a park bench, and they were actively seeking someone who picked up the coat and walked away with it. And in some avenues, it might be helpful for solving crimes, but in other ways, I felt like it was an invasion of privacy. They basically could look at somebody 3 blocks away. Their cameras could zoom in, and they could look at them, read license plates, numbers, and see that person and identify them from 3 blocks away. So, very different concept. They're living in a different area than we are here in the Midwest, and so interesting. So, that is my liaison report on NACO.
I'm going to just say something, as is my habit. I think that going to the NACO conferences is a great idea, and I don't know that I'll go again, but I tried this year, just couldn't make it. But Jean and Dean, I hope you two will go and go with our leader Cindy here. It's really an eye-opener, and there are so many resources there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Someone has already got a wheel someplace, and I would really encourage all of us to send one or two of us every session.
Commissioner Bender has been once. Her and I went together, and hopefully Commissioner Kursky will have an opportunity to replace me, or at least go this summer, because I'm unable to go due to family matters. So anyway, that will move on to new business. Is there any new business? And one item of old business, which, Carol, I could have done it, but I'm going to let you do it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Carol Muller, Commission Office. Yes, after this meeting, we have a tour scheduled at the Museum Archives, which is under construction across from Feeding, South Dakota, up in the northern part of Sioux Falls. Yes, and it is now becoming an unofficial tour. We have 2 commissioners who are able to attend. We don't have quorum, so just to let people know that yes, you're still going out, but 2 commissioners. And with a couple other of us, and Bill Hoskins from the museum will be our fearless leader today. So as we go through the mud to get to the building before it's being landscaped.
It will no longer be an official meeting. That was basically it. Then I would look for a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purpose of South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, 1, and 3.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second to recess for 10 minutes to reconvene into executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.